People here, it's kind of going in and out. So I'm curious how many people here have worked with these guys before. Raise your hands for a minute.
Oh no!
Yeah. So we have all been, so I know that David and Sean and Chris Lawson, we've been working together pretty much for 18 years straight. You know, on and off a little bit with Chris Lawson as he's taken some QA manager positions in different locations. Bob, we've been working with him for about 12 years. We brought him into Siemens Healthcare to do one of the largest Agile implementations in the world at the time. So we're very fortunate to have all this expertise in-house. The only thing I'll say really about Synergy is, you know, if we can help you, we would love to do it. Hopefully you've seen the level of expertise of these guys, and we have a lot of other people behind them that could come in and help your organization. So right now I'm pleased to introduce our moderator. This is Chris Bartosik, and Chris is a director at MetLife, and he has over 20 years IT experience in a wide range of companies, from startups to multi-billion-dollar organizations, and experience in a lot of industry verticals. Chris has led multiple large-scale IT implementations and transformation efforts, including organizational redesign, legacy replatforming, IT process re-engineering, key strategic partnerships, and wide-ranging cost-saving efforts. Chris's change-driven leadership across all phases of the delivery lifecycle has instilled a unique perspective on the essential needs and requirements of stakeholders in every project phase and transition. In addition, he's directed architecture, analysis, development, QA, and infrastructure organizations, and he approaches all challenges with an abstract lens to harness technology innovation for true and lasting change. So now, please give a hand for Chris, and I'll turn the panel discussion over to him.
Okay, is this better? Yeah? No? Okay. All right, so, well, thank you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you for the introduction. So we've got a number of questions we're going to pose to the gentleman here at the table. So there's no particular order or sequence. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. And we've got quite a bit of time to go through all these questions, so hopefully we'll get through them. But we do appreciate all the ones that came in from everyone attending the conference. So the first one, Bob, this is for you. What can someone in the QA field do to make themselves more valuable for this new landscape driven by Agile and DevOps?
Working. Hello?
We don't need to. On the top of the thing, push it up.
Hello?
Here.
Hello?
There you go.
I think I got it. So everyone got the good one? So the other guys got the good ones. I have my voice, but that's okay. So what can we do in QA, make yourself more valuable? A couple things come to mind. I think start looking at it not as a QA function, but like I do QA, but I'm a team member. So I'm a member of the team, you're a member of the team, you want to look holistically at the team. You want to start thinking occasionally, I know this may be scary, think like a developer, or be a developer, be empathetic to development, think like a tester, think like an automation, even if you're a manual tester, think like an automation tester, think like a VA. In a session this morning I talked about thinking like a product owner. So it's a whole team view. So, and I think the folks that really stand out in Agile teams are the ones that stop looking at their job as being a silo, and that's not my job. You know, here's my job, and the other stuff is not my job, to they really look holistically. That makes a unique difference. The other thing, and there's another question we might cover later, is start shifting left. So stop looking at your value proposition as my value is testing. The more test cases I run per day represents my value. And start looking at insight and customer value. And are we solving the right problems? And are we asking the right questions as a team? Are we building the right thing? And are we building it right? And I've said that in my sessions this morning. Those are probably the two critical things. It's a paradigm shift and it's really uncomfortable. The thing that sets the great testers, I think, apart in Agile teams is the skills you have. If you have this courage and if you can make this shift, you will stand out. Or another way of saying it is your teams really need that. Testers bring unique perspectives to Agile teams, but they have to rise up. You have to take courage. It's a little scary because it's a change, but it's worth the change because you'll drive great results in your Agile team.
Hey, can I add a little something to that? So, a number of people were in the last session that I did, but I talked about along those lines. We hear the terms I-based skills and T-based skills, and I just want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to hear that discussion. So much of what we've done in the past as testers has been solely focused on just doing testing to the point where we operate in silos. And what Bob is pointing out is that we can no longer operate in those silos to be effective in our organizations. And so I think the best thing you can do as a tester, as a QA person, is to think outside that I-based skill and look at more what other opportunities are there for you to provide value to your team. And it doesn't have to be technical necessarily. If you do have technical skills, that's great. But if you don't, it can be helping with business analysis. It can be helping with training. It can be help with documentation. There are many different additional skill sets that we all bring to the table in making sure that our teams have full advantage of that by offering it. Don't wait to be asked. Offer it. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
And Bob, in my last session, somebody asked a question very similar to what you just said. They said, and you were sitting right there, remember, right? Said, well, who should be the Scrum Master? And so we're always looking for that recipe, right? I said, there's no magic recipe. It depends, right? Who can do the job? Who can facilitate? And it's the upside down org chart, is what I say. It's the people who wants to sit on the bottom and hold the team up and enable them to do something great. And it's not about, how can I turn a project manager into a Scrum Master? And a lot of companies are doing that and they're getting the same results. And it's not the results they want necessarily. So when you're looking at your team, you got to be courageous and stand up and say, okay, what is the philosophy, what is the principle-based decisions we need to make about what we're trying to do, and what is that value proposition? If you don't have a value proposition, then you probably need to reconsider, your problem statement, what it is. So it's a really good statement, and it's great you said that, Bob, because the other people in here, you're hearing from Bob, who is definitely the expert and has written the book on it. So it's good.
There's something called Scrummerfall. I was just at I've been at a couple of conferences and we've been talking about Scrummerfall, and it's alive and well today. And Scrummerfall, quick definition, you have a 10-day sprint. Developers work the first 8 days. Testers come to the deal, we stand up and say, can I have anything to do? And the developers say, no, we're not there yet. And then on the 8th day, around the 9th day, when it's too late almost, all the stuff gets thrown over the wall in a sprint to the testers. And the magic happens, right? It's here, now it's your turn. Well, that's waterfall in Scrum wrapper. And sometimes people, a friend of mine, Mary Thorne, she was doing a mini keynote at Star East last week, and she gave some tips about how to avoid that. And one, I'll share one of them. And one of the tips is, shame on the testers who leave sprint planning, because Scrummerfall isn't a surprise. Scrummerfall was planned. Scrummerfall happens intentionally. The whole team goes into a room, plans a sprint, and the testers walk out with a smile on their face saying, cool, we have a great plan. And they just hose themselves to work nights in the weekend or miss their kids or whatever. And they didn't say, no, stop, this is unacceptable. We can plan better than this. Everyone was saying, this is an inhumane plan. It's great for development, but it's inhumane for the testers. And I want that to happen. And it's not just risky, it's not testers versus development. Scrummerfall is a risky way to deliver software, right? It's risky at a project level. It's risky at a leadership level. It's wrong. And so it goes back to courage. It really is step up. You're no longer victims of this waterfall life cycle where stuff is not the word I'm thinking. Stuff flows downhill and it hits testing, and there's no recourse. There is a recourse in that. We're in it together. And if you have a bad plan, if you bit off more than you can chew at a team level, then you need to say, no, that's more than we can chew. Let's bite off us and do it well.
Okay, very good. Okay, let's switch to tools. So David, this is for you. You're kind of flat there. What is the future of open source tools such as Selenium? Will they be around for the long term?
That's a good question. I just want to say first that this is the only time that I'm taller than Chris Lawson.
Put your mark right here.
Yeah, all right. So I wanted to acknowledge that.
Stand up now.
As far as open source, I think the nice thing about open source this world is that it is maturing, right? And you don't think of open source as being mature. But if you asked me this question 5 years, 6 years ago, then I would say your guess is as good as mine. But there are a few pretty leading so-called tools out there now that are open source. So of course, the big one is Selenium WebDriver, right? You know, Fortune 500 are using Selenium, so you know it's going to stick around for a while. In addition to that, other stuff are built on top of it. So you have Appium, you have Winium. Have you heard of Winium? All right, it's open source for Windows applications, right? So that's new, right? You have Protractor. Have you guys heard of Protractor? All right, Protractor is an open framework for Angular, okay, Angular application, okay. So all this stuff are built on top of the foundation, which is Selenium WebDriver. So by having this foundation, I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. However, that being said, if you go out to opensource.org/automation tools, I believe, right? Right now there's 136 listed of open source tools, right? So you know, picking the wrong one is very costly. So I know I told this story many times, but you know, when Ruby Water first came out, I thought it was the next wave, right? So I jumped on it, I learned it, I taught it, I went on project for it, and it went away. So I lost a year of my life. I should really be a lot younger now. 28 or 29 to be exact. But you can see how picking the wrong open source really have an impact, right? Because again, you know, you wasted, not wasted, but you kind of, you know. So however that being said, I think if you stick with Selenium base, it could be Appium, Winium, Selenium WebDriver, Protractors, right? All those Selenium base, I think it's going to be around for a while. And in addition to that, big companies are standing behind those tool sets, right? So Appium, SourceLab stand behind it, right? You know, Selenium PHP, Facebook stand behind that, right? W3C have Selenium WebDriver as their standard. So having all this stuff kind of backing, I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon.
And David and I are the two tool guys in the company, so we're always doing tool evaluations of some kind, looking at, you know, well, what's the next wave, what's coming next, and so forth. And we can spot a really cool, you know, next tool that's coming up, and we can also spot those that are pretending to be something they're not, and they're not really that valuable. But the thing about it is, I always say, is that the tools constantly is kind of ebb and flow. But a lot of the companies that you look at, like Sauce Labs or like Selenium or like Google is heavy Selenium. And so you look at these things and you see who's behind it. When we were looking at, David mentioned PHP, we were looking at for a client, they wanted to do a PHP framework with Selenium, and it's not natively supported by Selenium, the folks at Selenium. So we looked for what we call language bindings, and so we found PHP language binding. I found actually 3. One of which was one contributor to this particular open source project, and he hadn't contributed in like a year, right? It's probably some 15-year-old kid in the basement of that mom and dad's house or something. We don't know, right? But I found Facebook, and I came back and said, oh, I found the Facebook language bindings for them. And Facebook, I don't know what you guys think, but I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. So I think you're okay. Zuckerberg and team, they're doing good jobs over there, right? So you know, so you got to look at it from a holistic standpoint, right? Look at it and see, you know, well, who's behind what. Just because you find a really cool, you know, tool, but nobody's really supporting it anymore, or they're abandoning it because it'll go away quick. Right. The key is that you gain the skill, the technology, the technical expertise to evaluate these tools effectively, and the tools are free, right? Open source is free, but it's not cheap. Or it takes a big steep learning curve on that. So yeah, definitely open source. I'm with David. Everywhere I ago now. He and I started out our career 20 years ago together, doing what used to be Windrunner, right? Mercury Interactive, it was a commercial tool, and we're seeing a shift, a big shift. A lot of companies, even financial institutions now, who are very risk averse, are going to open source. So I think that's somewhere worth looking into, investing time into, but it is not the thing of heart. And it does take a lot of technical expertise, and it's a big learning curve on it, so just be prepared for that.
Well, the other thing you can look for from an open source is how big the community is. So if you find that the contributor is there's no one contributing, or there's only 1 or 2 contributors, probably it's not something that you want to go to. That, and also another thing about open source is, just Google simple questions and see if you have a lot of answer coming back. Right? So, you can how do I connect with Excel? If you get no answer from that, it's probably not a lot of people using it, right? So things like that you definitely want to look into. But I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. I don't think it's going to go away, period, just for the fact that development is moving to open source. And if anything else, QA kind of lagged behind development a little bit. So we will be on this train for a long time.
Okay. Very good, very good. So Sean, the next one is for you. You actually hit this briefly in the last session. But for any QA organization that's asked to really kind of transform into Agile and supporting DevOps, what type of metrics are important to gather as you're starting out?
Yeah. So actually, I'm going to, Bob can kind of feed off this a little bit too. Yeah, I mentioned in the last class that during one podcast, someone referred to me as the minister of metrics. Because I tend to preach about it sometimes. Anyway, so let's start with what Agile is. Agile is not a metrics-heavy philosophy in most ways. We want to minimize time and effort spent on things that may be considered a waste. And a lot of people do think that measuring stuff can be somewhat wasteful. I counter that with how important is the information, and so it's how you utilize it that actually drives the need for the metrics versus just doing it because someone has asked you to. I think in relation between Agile itself and DevOps, there's 2 key metrics that I think I would track. One is throughput. So throughput's a little bit different from velocity. When you think about velocity, it's how many points you're able to produce or complete within a sprint. Throughput is sort of that same number, but what actually gets into the release? How much effort, how much value? You can measure it in different ways. You might measure it from a point basis. You might measure it from a value basis, something that's tied to actual dollar signs or priority, something like that. So I would say first is throughput. And then tied to that for DevOps, I think one of the reasons we are seeing this migration more and more towards development and operations and QA sort of tying in together is during that point of release, how much is actually automated? Because we're trying to take human hands off of it to reduce some of those mistakes. And so I think some measurement around the level of automation for your DevOps processes, that might be tied to smoke tests. On more of a testing side, it may be tied to how your configuration management system is set up and what level of automation you have for your builds. But those 2 together, I think, can give you some very useful information on how to proceed with the next steps. And again, that's the metrics discussion is, don't think of a metric as just a number. Think of it as information that's utilized to make a change or an improvement to how you're currently operating. And I think those 2 are probably the key ones that I would target for potential improvements. You want to add anything to that, Bob?
Sure. And it's not specific metrics. I made 3 notes. I'll start with the first one. There's this notion of metrics dysfunction.
Yeah.
Robert Austin wrote a book. He was a professor at Canadian Element years ago. And he wrote this book. The classic example, I think, is a Dilbert, where there's a Dilbert cartoon where a tester was saying, "I'm going to write enough bugs to get myself a minivan and go on vacation or something." So they were getting incented by bugs, right? Bugs or if you incented developers by lines of code produced. And those are the dysfunctions. They're metrics, and you can measure them and you can trend them. But what behavior do they drive? And in those cases, they can drive silly behavior. and so they may not be good metrics. So you want to avoid metrics dysfunction whenever you can, and really see. And there's a lot of bad metrics in the world. The other thing is Agile's trying to make them team-based. So one of the things I look for in mature organizations is we no longer measure QA stuff as a measure of the QA organization versus development stuff versus BA stuff or versus project manager stuff, is we measure team stuff like output. So velocity is a team output, which is cumulative, it's measuring the team. So the developers and the testers working together, those are healthier. So you want to move from waterfall silo-based metrics to, and that's a trend you want to see your organization. If they're truly going agile, you want to see that. So you want to stay away from metrics dysfunction. You want to see teams being measured equally. And then the other thing is outcomes and behavior. So instead of measuring upfront stuff, you want to measure outcomes, like how many stories did we get to clients? How many clients were happy with our output? To Sean's point, like value. So instead of measuring leading metrics, you want to measure outcome-based metrics. What were the outcomes? With happy value, happy teams, things like that. And measure behavior too. Look at behavior. So not what we say and not what we measure, but what do we do? So that's a shift that's happening in metrics that Agile, I think, in DevOps is sort of encouraging. And I think it's healthy. It's well overdue.
Yeah. I just want to piggyback a little bit on the incentives and the dysfunction, the potential dysfunction that metrics have, and that's, I think, why so many organizations, as they've gone agile, have we've all seen metrics misused. They should never be used as a hammer. And this is something that I've preached for 15 years now, since I started talking about metrics. Is don't measure individuals. That's the biggest hammer you've got. And looking at how measurement or metrics actually will incentivize people. So I think there's some, it's easy to come up with a number and a formula, but what is it going to incentivize? And you do not want to incentivize bad behavior or behavior that may not match reality. It could be a bad thing in and of itself in terms of what they're doing, but it's even worse if you're incentivizing, say, the number of automated tests that are written, and they're writing, so we're just going to raise the count, but the tests don't really do anything. They don't add much value individually, and so you end up with a suite of thousands and thousands of test cases, but they provide very little individual value, and this is the wrong incentive. So being careful in any metric in looking at what you're actually incentivizing. And then the other corollary to that ultimately is how you will use it. So what's the potential improvement or information it gives you to see what we can change or do differently next time. Yep.
Very good. So I actually have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Definitely. So back on metrics, if you could sum up what the number one indicator that companies are trying to define from an investment standpoint. So they invest in resources, they invest in time, particularly when QA is kind of getting involved in Agile, DevOps, whatever like that. If you could tell everyone, what's probably the heaviest, most important metric that they could focus on. Because you hear lots of different discussions about, what's my ROI, and those are very broad discussions. But if you could, one nugget that we could take away from if you invest in putting QA as part of this process.
Right. So I'm going to answer it in two ways. One, there is the metrics that most companies actually track, and then there's the one that they probably should track. So the one that companies most often track is related to either the number of tests, from a QA perspective, the number of tests written, whether that's manual or automated. And again, we think about how does that actually incentivize the teams? What are they actually going to do for that? Are they going to, or the number of bugs found? They may actually be writing up bugs that aren't legitimate bugs, or they're really nits and not the reality. So that's the most common. What I think, going back to what Bob and I said, is ultimately you're looking for value. So some of that is, from a QA perspective, how do we add value? And Bob brought up this topic earlier, this shift left thinking. how do we prevent issues as QA, as testers, how do we help prevent issues from the very beginning? So identifying metrics that do two things. One, help us figure out what we have improved, and two, on the back end, an easy one is one that I used to refer to as test effectiveness. How much stuff, good stuff, are we finding before it actually goes to production? How many bugs are we finding? So it's a measurement of what we found versus what actually got through. That's related a little bit to throughput, but if you know what you missed, there's some value there, because now you can improve the next time, either by adding an additional test or learning additionally what to analyze, or what extra you should analyze to find it next time. So I would do that. So I hope that's not too broad. Everybody wants a number, everybody wants a thing, but it's a little more amoebic than that sometimes.
I mean,
to add to that real quick, Chris, what Sean said is everybody wants that quick recipe, right?
Yeah.
What's that one golden nugget? You know, that secret sauce, and there's really not one, all right? And so I always ask is it depends. What are your problem areas? What are you experiencing? What are you trying to understand? What challenges do you have? And then yes, maybe look at what we can measure to understand more about that. Those were one of my sessions. We talk about the circle of truth, right? Take that data, right, and turn it into information. The information turns into knowledge. That knowledge becomes wisdom. And then wisdom is what we're ultimately after, right? Of how we make better choices and decisions to add value. But one of the things that I do as a consultant, I'll take a tour around the shop floor and just look at people's face. It's not a metric. It's not objective. It's just subjective. I look at them. I can tell when people are engaged. Are they happy? Are they leaning in? Or are they got their arms crossed like this? That's a subjective measurement of looking at the overall outcome of a team, right, if you will. So just kind of keep those things in mind. Even though you can't measure it, doesn't mean that it shouldn't be looked at and considered as part of your effectiveness scale, if you will. So
I'm going to sound like I disagree with those two fine gentlemen.
all right, turn the microphone off. Turn the microphone off.
A little, but I'm going to add on. I mean, Sean said QA. Chris was talking about some general team metrics. I'm going to actually say from an Agile, and again, from an Agile point of view, and from a business point of view, it's all about the customer. So to heck with all of that other stuff, like Net Promoter Score really looks at, are you willing to be a promoter of a company? Are you being delighted? So 9s and 10s matter, 8s are neutral, and everything below that sort of doesn't matter. And we're looking for folks who really, what are we doing to delight the customer? So ROI, I would convert ROI into customer surveys, turnaround time. So all the things they said boil down to, are we kicking butt in the marketplace? And Agile teams and organizations that have Agile teams need to really be customer-centered. At iContact years ago, we were trying to measure on an epic basis, we would have an ROI per epic. Our product owners would predict, so we had 100,000 clients, and we would predict clicks, so how many clients would be engaged with a given epic or a given feature. And the product owners would estimate that. And one of the cool things we started doing, and companies are doing this now, Pendo is a Raleigh company that helps with instrumentation, is you have conjecture and then you have reality, right? So what did we convert? How many people, we thought it would be 20% of the customer base, and then what's the reality? And did we hit the reality? Did we double the reality? What was it? And then we would look at that and we would try to understand the cause. So we would look at, if we thought it would be 50,000 and it was 5, we wouldn't fire anyone, but it was like we just wasted time and we wasted effort, and we would pivot very quickly around trying to figure out what did we do wrong so that we could better delight our customers by delivery, by quality, by turnaround time. I think Agile is driving some of that thinking. So if there's one metric I would put it is like client joy or client delight. Surveys are a way to do that. Measuring click rates, if you have those kinds of applications, are a way to do that. We have to keep our eye on customers. And we have to be very, very nimble. And we have to move from what do we think they do to what, what's the reality? What is the reality of the usage or the ROI?
Just real quick, Bob and we spent a lot of time together over dinner and drinks and in airports and things like that. We frequently have these discussions, and like you said, sometimes it may sound like we disagree, when really we're not disagreeing. What we're doing is we're presenting different perspectives on the same topic. the types of metrics he talked about, I would call sort of post-production metrics, and they're very important. They prove the value that I just talked about. The types of metrics I was talking about are sort of pre-production. And I think it's the marriage of the two. It's what was the true value, and then how do you correlate that to some measurement that you had. Yes, you're doing good. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'll let you.
I need to go to the next spam.
I'm already the best, so I don't need
All right, so let's switch it up. David, what are some challenges to mobile testing and mobile automation?
It's the biggest challenge, I think, in mobile is it's moving too fast. It is moving way too fast. I mean, you know, back in the day when we were testing, you know, IE, right? You got IE 7 comes out, and then like 8 years later, we got 8, right? So we're like, woohoo, we got to test an upgrade, right? With OS, I mean, you know, what's that, 10.032 now or something like that, right? So it's like every year there's a upgrade, at least a point upgrade, a couple of point upgrades, and actually the last upgrade there was a lot of point upgrade right afterward because there was a bunch of bugs, right? Apple does produce bugs. All right. So the biggest challenge is not only all that other stuff that I talk about with the device feature, like gesture and all that stuff, but how do we keep track of all those versions of Android and iOS that comes out so quickly? In addition to that is, the device itself, right? I mean, we have, S8 comes out, the Note 8 comes out and start on fire, you know what I mean? I mean, like all this fun stuff, right? How do we keep up with all this stuff? So what I typically recommend is that from a mobile challenges standpoint, especially come to OS, what you want to do is you really want to focus on things that carrier force you to upgrade or annoy the thing out of you to upgrade. You know what I'm talking about? Like with AT&T, I have AT&T, and if you don't upgrade, it just keeps every morning it pop a message and say it's time to upgrade. It's time to. Eventually, I give in, right? So in that case, I know that the typical user will eventually give in. So usually, I will only support one version back, so-called, of whatever the OS is. Now, Android is a little bit different because a lot of Android, depending on, here's another fun part about Android is, even though you're on a certain version, the manufacturer can customize that version to fit their needs, right? So not only you have to worry about the version, but also the customization from that manufacturer, in addition to the carrier, forcing you to upgrade or not. So all those come into play. And one thing, like I said in my mobile classes, if you have one thing that you take away from a mobile standpoint is get those analytics from your developer, okay? Because what you will find is that you will get a general sense of how many people upgrade at a certain time and be able to kind of react to that on the next release based on the previous. If you don't have those data, it will be impossible for you to test the number of devices, right? And of course, your app version itself, okay? So those are the big challenges in addition to everything else, which is, gesture, camera, all the different kind of app you have. So, analytic. If you can get to it, and, I have people raise their hand and say, I'm in QA, how do I get there? Well, just like this new thing with Agile, right? Go ask questions, right? Don't be in a silo anymore, right? You're in a Scrum meeting. Hey, do we do analytic? Do you guys have analytic? Ask those questions because you'll be very surprised that company does not have analytic. Every company I know of, some kind of analytic in the digital channel, on their website, in their mobile, in the wearable, they all have some kind of analytic embedded in there. So you got to go mine those data now.
Can I just jump in real quick? You sort of touched on it, David, but we've seen with some of our clients, it's not just having the analytics available, it's how you use it. So in an environment where you have limited time, limited resources, you can only automate so much, you can only run so many tests. Where do you put your focus? And that's where the analytics play a role, is not just knowing what's coming up and what people are likely to do, but what are they actually using? So are most of your customers on Android, but your paying customers are on iPhones? Do they use iPads to shop and desktops to purchase? What's the actual profile of the individuals who are utilizing whatever app that you want to test? And that's where you put your emphasis. You would test more on search on an iPad than you would the purchasing. You would test more in the base browser for a laptop or a desktop to actually do your purchasing. So it's having the flexibility as a tester to shift how you prioritize your work to match what the client or the customer and user are actually doing, I think, is another important piece that we can get from those analytics.
Well, I have a perfect example for that. So I was working for a client, and you know how the new where you can just purchase by putting your thumb on the security pad, right? So we thought this is going to be awesome, right? Everybody's going to use this, right? And so we spent a lot of time testing the fingerprint security feature for purchase on iPhone. And the analytic does not support that, at least now, right? We have less than 0.1% of the user actually uses that feature on the app to do purchasing, all right? Because I think part of that is people don't trust it yet, right? People don't trust it yet. I mean, I don't want to be scanning and buy a bunch of stuff, right? I want to click the confirm button. You see what I'm saying? So we spent tons of money testing that. When the analytic, unfortunately, that analytic was post-production, did not support our testing. So after that, we actually scaled way back on testing that as part of regression because the number just doesn't support what we need to do to it. So that's a perfect example of how we use analytic to kind of get to, the level of testing we need.
Well, that's also part of that partnership. That future partnership where we go forward between testing and product. So I had sessions when we were talking about partnering up with product ownership. So there's analytics, but it's also just before, so as part of risk-based testing, pull those folks in. The risk-based testing plan is no longer just the testers doing that, but pull product in. And we need that data, so if it takes whatever it takes them to get that data in, so we can look at coverage and we can make good plan decisions for what essentially we're going to cover. Demand that, so no one guesses. So I guess we're not in it alone as well, is what I'm saying. And pull the business in and pull product in and demand that data and then get them to sort of they're the partner in making those trade-off decisions in the risk-based testing coverage.
Okay, thank you. Chris, this is for you. So we spent some time talking about open source and some of the tooling to support DevOps. Talk about any commercial offerings that you've seen that may be of interest to the team here to do some research on, or they may be using themselves.
For the DevOps tools? Yeah. So I'm actually working with a client right now on the whole DevOps, implementation and trying to understand. So you guys familiar with DevOps is? I mean, you heard the term. It's basically taking the idea that the developers, they typically write code, and the operations people, they come together and they try to enable each other to be able to do things more effective and efficiently within their software development cycles. You will. So, having said that, everybody likes tools, right? If you heard my sessions, I talk about my garage is filled with tools and half of them I don't even know what they do, and so forth. And I'm looking at it like doing an assessment with a client now, looking at all their different tools they have, and I noticed that several tools overlap. So they'll have like a tool that does just deployments, but it does deployments very well, and it's called Octopus, for example. And then there's another tool called Team City Server, like a CI server. So when you're talking about DevOps, the first thing you want to look at is how do you control your entire pipeline, right? How are you going to control everything from end to end, and then how do we find those quality gates and how we map it out? So I typically look at a CI server type tool, like if you're talking about like a commercial tool like Team City with Visual Studio, it's a Microsoft product, versus Jenkins, which is open source. They do the same thing, right? It depends on which way you want to go. And I always tend to stick with the core competency of your team, your group. So what are your teams working in? So one question I ask are you guys doing like Java development, open source stuff, or are you doing commercial development, commercial? And sometimes you're doing a hodgepodge of both, and you have to make a decision or a choice on that matter. But that's how I look at it. I look at what do you want to do and how do you do it. So I start with a Team City or a CI server, and then figure out, well, what else do I need around that? I call them ancillary tools. What else do you need? We need a version control system. You need, all this stuff. And at some point, right, you're going to get into testing. And you need some tools, right, whether it's open source or commercial. So commercial tools that Dave and I are familiar with and use is like what used to be called Quick Test Professional is now UFT. That is the same thing as like a functional test tool like Selenium and Java would facilitate. Again, depends on what you're trying to do, what protocols are you testing against. When David was talking about Selenium earlier, what he said was accurate. But what if you're doing client server, right? You're not doing web. Well, then you need another tool. And this is we're talking about Winning, right? So there's all these other tools and things you have to do. So don't just look at it from a standpoint of, well, I want to use this tool because I heard this guy at the conference named David Dang who said it's really cool to use, right? But it doesn't fit your need and what you're trying to do. So I feel about a lot of different tools out there. But the key is have a core competency of your group and back to what these guys say about Agile. Poll your group, right? Find out what you already have. You may already have some of these tools in place, and then how do you work with these tools, and how do you integrate, right? The key behind all this stuff, whether it's commercial or open sources, is integrating things together that work very nicely together. They play well together, And so I just mentioned that one client. They actually have a tool called Octopus integrated with TeamCity. Well, I asked the question because that's what I do as a consultant. I ask questions. Do you know that TeamCity can do the same thing for you? And they said, yeah, but I just like this tool better. So you got preferences, right? You got things that people like. Okay, cool. So we've got to consider that. What can this thing do, or what would the impact be if we took that tool away to certain people? Well, come to find out, the entire team doesn't like that tool. They want to get rid of it. But there's one guy that's hanging on to it. He's kind of a configuration manager, kind of a critical part of the whole puzzle there. So anyway, that's the kind of things that I think about, I look at as far as tools go. And so forth, and how all it fits together. You know what I mean? And it doesn't fit together nicely, then somebody's going to have to build some kind of connector or some kind of bridge or something, and that gets very costly and expensive. So try to avoid that where you can, because it will get very expensive very quick.
Right. Yeah. To add to that, I mean, I know probably a lot of you guys still have QCALM, right? You guys have that? You know what I'm talking about?
Quality center,
yeah.
application lifecycle.
Yeah, and with the open source world, especially running it through Jenkins, a lot of people was like, hey, I want to integrate Jenkins into my ALM. Well, you can. We've done it. It's just no fun. Right? So you have commercial tools. You integrate with an open source tool. Now you have things that doesn't work quite well together, right? So it's another consideration is, as you move your landscape from purchase to open source, you not only have to look at just what that tool does, but all the other stuff that impact by it, right? So QCALM is going to be around for a long time. However, should we stick that only for manual testing and not worry about the automation aspect of it? Because integrating the result from Jenkins back into ALM is no fun, right? And a lot of the time, you don't get correct result update anyway, because it's taking the last one. So again, you got to balance that out. So I think we're going to be in this world of some purchase, some open source for a while, and there are purchase tools that comes out that are really good, but as even the purchase tool company realize that they have to go to semi-open source. So you look at SOAP, right? SOAP UI, you got the free version, and then you got the pro, right? And that's how tools company are doing it too, right? So like even with HP, right? Now you got lean FT, you know what I mean? So you got kind of the halfway point kind of deal.
Which lean FT is just Selenium.
Yeah.
It's just a way to take that technical, depth away, if you will, right? To try to implement and try to make it a little easier for people to implement. Because it takes a lot. I mean, I do Selenium training all over the place, and first thing, we talk about, so the first 3 days I'm in class, the first 2 days I'm in class, I never talk about Selenium at all. It takes me 2 days to get them up to the point where they can even talk about using Selenium or what Selenium is. Because all the ancillary tools leading up to it, how to get your environment set up and configured and getting everything running, making sure it all works together. Then we start talking about the tools. And so it's kind of interesting. It's a little bit backwards when you think about it. But you got to understand, what Dave was saying. You understand what your problem is and what your proposition is. And when I go to companies, they always ask me questions like, questions like, which tool's better? which one would you pick? You know, it's like going to a car dealership. Would you pick a Cadillac versus a Volvo? What depends, right? What are you trying to do? If you're trying to be cool and flashy, then, you know, maybe Toyota Camry's not the way to go. I'm not trying to be cool and flashy.
Toyota Camry.
That's what I Toyota Camry, right? You know, if you want to drive in a fanny pimped out, drives itself, then you're there, you know? I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do. Neither one's right or wrong, right? But, I mean, it just depends on what your value chain looks like and what you're trying to do. Because there's a thing called principle and preference. So, principle is there's certain things that has to be done. Like, you need to version control your software. You need to have certain quality gates in place. You need to do testing. How you go about doing the preference in it, you know, it is up to, you know, a lot of context, you know, and how you do that. You know, what's the core competence of the group? You know, I always had this. What if our QA group is non-technical? They don't understand tools and so forth. I said, fire the QA group and get you a technical QA group. No, I'm just kidding. I don't tell them that. You know, I tell them, you know, find tools that meet that need, right? It may be a commercial tool in that case, or it may be that you can send them to some technical classes to get them trained and understand how it all works together. But the key is, I always say, is to understand what tools do, what your need is, and address it from that standpoint.
I'm just going to add one twist, and I agree 120% with what David and Chris said, but then forget tools for just a second. There's a DevOps mindset, I think, and it's a shift left thing. So what would you do if you had no tools, but you still wanted to design with operations in mind because it would be more efficient workflow? Well, then we would be doing collaborative manual testing or something. So the tools matter, but we also need to have like this DevOps mindset where we're designing with ops in mind. We're designing with test automation in mind. We're designing with performance in mind, and that's how we get efficient. So don't lose the thinking is what I'm saying. It's a tools play, but it's also a mind shift play, and it's also a shift left play. And so even if you're not involved in the tool side of things, you can shift your mindset.
I actually said that in my first session, Bob. You said, I said, if you can't do manual testing well, you're not going to do automation well. You got to be able to do it, you know, man. So before you start investing in tools or any kind of anything, especially, can you do it on the whiteboard? Can you manually go to, there's no investment on the whiteboard. Let's run through some experience and see what the practice looks like. You know, so focus on the practice and making sure that you facilitate that practice with either, can you do it manually? If you can't do it manually, you can't do it with a tool. That's the whole thing. The collaboration is key. So that's absolutely 100%. And this is coming from tool guys. We're tool guys. We love tools. I got a whole garage full of tools. I love it. I go out there just to get my testosterone level up higher. And I don't have no clue what half of them do just because people give them to for Christmas or I buy them somewhere. I think it's cool at Lowe's. I walk through Lowe's. I feel like I need to buy a tool. Anyway, but my point is that, you know, figure out how to do things, you know, and get the skill, the thinking, the thought process, and then figure out what tool works best for that.
No. Next question.
Next question. Okay, Bob, this is for you. So for companies talking about wanting to take that first step into Agile, if you could give, you know, 2 or 3 words of wisdom to bring back to those companies or whoever those leaders may be, what would those be?
Don't do it.
I'm going to disagree with Bob for once.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this earlier in case this question came up. I would say it's leaders, go leaders first. So one mistake, it's not a mistake, but it's a common practice and it doesn't always work out, is everyone will say that the teams need to go Agile. And the leadership team just pays for it, sort of. And then they don't think it affects that. And they just want the teams to go Agile. And they bring coaches in and they do training sessions. And that's really a bad strategy. So I think the better strategy is leaders go Agile first. They understand the metrics change. They understand what role they have to play in helping the team shift. So they top down instead of bottom up. And they don't have to understand it. You know, they don't have to be able to code in extreme programming. They have to get the paradigm shift that Agile is. And it's an organizational shift. So it's the teams, there's some things the teams just can't shift. They can't, if the sales organization is selling things on an annual basis and something, every 2 weeks something pops out, the sales organization, the teams are not going to be able to shift the sales organization. So it's an organizational change. The next thing is whole team. It's a whole team, and we said this a little bit earlier. It's a whole team. We have to stop talking about silos. Testers. I once worked at a place and I charged myself $5 every time I said developer and tester. I deemed myself, and I filled a jar with money, and the teams used it. And the right word for me was team. So instead of saying the developer should do this, or the tester should do this, or the VA should do this, I wanted to shift my language to be the team should do this. Who failed in the sprint? Did the developers fail? Did the testers fail? I needed to shift that. The team had a problem, and I want the team to correct it. No one throws anyone else under the bus, right? We don't use that under the bus language. Like, why didn't the testers find that bug? Well, why did you write it in the first place, right? So we need to shift that language. And there's alignment then. We need to be aligned up. So the development, if you're going Agile, it's really hard for the test organization to go Agile if the development organization isn't preaching the same things. Like TDD, right? The testers want to do TDD unit testing, where we think it's a game changer, but the development organization isn't buying it. Well, that's good. The testers are not going to be able to sort of make that change if there's not development team alignment. The third thing it's going to sell self-serving is go get help from Zenergy or someone, internal help, external. This is a cultural shift. This isn't just like buying a tool, right? And tools are hard. This is organizational shift, culture shift. We're changing minds. So don't go it alone. Don't operate on yourself without anesthetics and things like that. Go get some help. And it turns out you don't need a lot of help, you need startup help. And the help needs to be able to help the leaders, help management, and help the teams make that shift.
Yeah, so you talked about leaders, Bob, at the very beginning, and then at the very end you said leaders, management, and the teams. And so I want to emphasize sort of the management layer. To Bob's point, if you're looking to move more agile, I think, as you said, it's an organizational change. It's a holistic change. It's not just focused at the team level, but not just at the leadership either. There tends to be, executives, managers, and then teams. One of the things we talked about earlier were these metrics. And a lot of times it's managers that are asking for these metrics. And so from a waterfall perspective, they already have a game plan. They know what they're used to. And then you come along and you've got this agile thing, and it's like, well, I need this report. Why do you need it? Just come to our stand-up. The reason they need it is because they think that's the only way they can get the information. But the reality is, within Agile, there's new ways to get the information. There's new avenues for communicating with different parts of the organization. And so it's a shift not just at the leadership level and the team level, even the middle managers. Where do they play now? It's not siloed anymore. But there's still a role for them, right? There's still a need to have good QA practices within those people who are doing the testing on the teams. You still need good development practices, good operational practices, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a play for them, but it is a shift in their mindset, what they need, what they're asking for, and how they work with their peers and the teams.
Well, it's just, to wrap it up, it's a shift. So for me, I've been a senior leader, and in Waterfall, it felt like people were serving me. They had to report to me. I was driving strategy. I was driving status. I had all of the intellectual property in my brain. How scary is that? And it was just work, so it cascaded down. And then I quickly realized, and Agile's driving this, that the intellectual capacity, the creativity, the innovation of any organization resides where? Where does it reside, everyone? Is it up at the top? It's in the team. The rubber meets the road at a team level. And that's what we're talking about. Leadership, there needs to be leadership, there needs to be management, but we have to be respectful that the rubber meets the road where at the people level. And that's what Agile's doing. It's trying to activate the people. Not testers only or developers only, but the people. And the organizations that really do that, go out there and look at case studies. There's kick-butt organizations that when they do that, when they make that transference, that leaders lead, but the people are driving the value and the innovation and the creativity, and we're doing it together in partnership, and it's a respectful partnership. It turns out that they drive incredible results in the marketplace, and they compete the way we were talking about the ROI, etc. So that's the shift that we're trying to get.
Very good. All right. Excellent. So I think we've got some time for questions.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
All right.
If anybody has questions out there, please feel free to ask. We can take one or two.
Yep, just raise your hand and, yes sir, you first.
I've done a couple of places that do Agile, and use air quotes on that one. And it seems like the testing organizations lose track of the application's processes and the overall process. What is that application supposed to be solving? Case in point, one of the companies, it took 12 QA staff a month to do regression because all of the tests were written to the functional individual spot. What I said was switch back to process-based testing. Every test case you write, keep in mind that it's part of the process and it needs to integrate into the whole thing. We went from 12 QA staff taking a month down to half the 6 staff taking a week to do the regression. Is that something you see happen a lot when companies make the transition from?
I don't want to say if I've seen it a lot. What I will say is the approach you took with how to write the test is the approach that we preach. Is we said don't write system tests, not unit tests. Write tests that take you from start to finish within the system, even if the functionality is somewhere in the middle. So it's sort of a philosophy that we're built on. Whether or not that organizationally happens for some of our clients, I can't say that I've seen that necessarily, but I can understand how that would happen. But I think your approach is correct.
I mean, from an agile mindset, so some of your language I was struggling with, like QA and it sounded like silo-based a little bit. And that was the organizational example, right? But I wanted to come up to these wonderful QA folks with team members, with QA backgrounds, innovatively looked at customer flow and reduced the throughput of the system to deliver value from X to Y to the benefit of the client. How cool is that, right? And now let's start getting the developers or the teams. I want the teams to continue that. So that was optimizing regression. What can we do to optimize DevOps? Look downstream. Can we optimize documentation? Can we optimize DevOps? Look upstream. Can we optimize UX? Can we optimize design? That's that agile team thinking. So I like that. I think that's a perfect example of the behavior that we're looking for, right? Keeping our eye on the ball, like the horizontal ball. It's not the silo. It's like, what are we doing on the delivery side? So keep doing that. And I don't care if it's in air quotes or not. It's about value. It's about teamwork. It's about delivery. It's about having fun. It's about value, right?
Well, I would take it a step further. Like, if you work closely enough with the development team, you really don't need to run all regression. I hate to say this, right? Because if you know exactly what's being changed, and if you're technical and actually sees what's being changed, you do still have to test regression, but you're not going to have to do every single functionality. You know what I mean? I mean, to your point, I mean, business flow is usually, if you have a business flow, is critical, right? That's why there's a business flow. So if you follow that business flow, usually it gets you what you need. But to know exactly what changed, I know there's a lot of tools out there that does code-based analysis to figure out what got changed and what area it affects it, right? That helps to start with, but actually talk to the development team and say, what did you change, right? And they say, oh, I changed this. All right. If you understand what is changed, and if you're technical, you can really be able to kind of be more selective in what your regression looks like, right? So I know in the waterfall days, we say, in the waterfall days, we have a release once every year or once every 6 months. We should run all regression, but reality is, Agile doesn't call for that anymore, right? And we should kind of adapt to that by saying, do we really need to run full regression every sprint? We don't, right? We have to be more targeted.
It's a really good point. I worked at a company, it's a PHP shop. We had about 30 testers. 3 of those testers, or 4 of them, could spell PHP and develop in PHP. The rest couldn't. All of those testers in their Scrum teams were pairing with developers writing unit tests. And the developers pulled them in. So what it was is it wasn't that they were looking for equal partners from a development point of view, they were looking for equal partners from a testing point of view, how to test it. one of the side effects we discovered is the testers started gaining confidence because they understood both the developers who tested what, how well they tested it, they gained confidence and they reduced the regressions. They didn't increase the risk. And it was a positive side effect. It's the same thing we're talking about. We need to start collaborating. We also need to trust more, right? So transparency gains trust, gains efficiency, and it really is a beautiful example of what we're talking about. It's not about 100% or 50%. It's about appropriate testing to get stuff out the door and really, wow our clients. Right?
Okay.
In a large shop, and I work at BB&T, so let's say we're going to take a picture of a check on your mobile device so you can deposit that check into your account. So maybe one Agile team tests the taking the picture of the check, but then you have to go through security, make sure it's a valid check, you have to do the deposit, make sure the deposit actually happened. So it requires many different departments in the bank. How can we handle that and stay agile if maybe, everyone's kind of agile, but deposit team's not quite yet at agile, and how do we handle like some of that end-to-end testing where it has to flow through the entire place of the bank and keep things in small chunks, to keep it agile?
I'll chime in to start, and I'll put these guys out. I'm going to say something embarrassing. I don't know, right? So there's an agile mindset, right? We want to do things in slices. Right, we want to not wait forever. We want slices to be interrelated across teams.
We don't want to be dependent on.
We don't want to be dependent on teams. I want to get early notification if the integrations work. Right, so waiting 3 months versus 3 sprints. 3 sprints is better than 3 months or 6 months. Right, folks need to work together. So what I would look at is get those teams. I don't even care if they're agile. I do care a little bit that they're agile waterfall, but I want us to look at the flow, and I want us to look at how do we get early feedback in that flow as soon as we can. Can we do a slice? Can we do slices, these thin slices across the teams to get that feedback loop? So there's system decisions here, there's customer workflow decisions, and regulatory stuff. That's what BB&T is good at. I'm just saying, bring an agile mindset to that. Stop thinking the way you historically thought. Try that. Try to. I know it's hard, but look at what's the simplest possible thing we can do, not getting caught up in our silos, to get this thing out. And I found the team getting kind of to the chase. If you can inspire folks and give them the space to do that, give them a little time to think, right? Give them the space, take away this data intensity and this throwing stuff out the door. Let's work as fast as we can, right? Time trumps quality, time trumps collaboration. If you give folks a little bit of time, they can figure that out, and they can figure out a faster way to do it and a better way to do it. So space, give them a little space to think.
One of the things we've talked about is, Bob harps on this idea of a team as opposed to developers and testers, right? And so actually what I'm hearing you say is not only are testers a separate team, but even within the test team there are silos. There are silos, maybe it's skills-based, maybe it's organizationally based, so that there are individuals who understand this aspect of the technology, this. What we ultimately want, as Bob mentioned, is you want to be able to take a slice from end to end. So you need a couple of people within your Agile teams who actually understand that process from end to end so that they can test all the way across. Now, how do you get there? I think one of the things we talk about on a regular basis is as teams are moving towards Agile, you're not doing a release at the end of every sprint, so you may have something we refer to as a hardening sprint, and that's where a lot of regression may occur. Also, some of these larger end-to-end tests will occur where you have multiple teams come pulling their different aspects, their different features together to do the testing as a whole. Well, that's during that hardening sprint, that's a time to sort of cross-pollinate, so that individual testers who have a focus or a real set of experience in one area can bring someone else up to speed in that same area, so that when they go back to their other team, their regular team, they have both skill sets now. They have at least some minimal experience. That way it's not like you're not testing that piece of functionality at all. It may not be to the level or depth that you feel is required or sufficient, but at least it's been hit on, and you know someone's got some experience with it. So I might take that as an intermediate step to sort of do that cross-pollination, but ultimately what you want is you don't want the silos, and you don't want the silos within the silos.
What's it? There's a law, I should know this and I don't. There's a law that says system structure mirrors organizational structure, or organizational structure mirrors system structure. There's a relationship there. So sometimes we build this complexity in intentionally ourselves. So it's not just, so back I said kumbaya, get together, chats, vertical slices, stuff. There's something there, but there's also good old-fashioned organizational, like remodeling or retuning at an organizational app level of challenging the very assumptions of the workflow has to go through system A versus system B versus system C. That was true, but can we change that, right? And really, now this is organizational change and system architecture change, and maybe you don't do it overnight. So it's not just throw it down to the teams. I think what I'm suggesting is there's a team-based thing and a collaboration thing, but also the organization needs to start thinking about flow and throughput and really challenging what, because that stuff didn't just happen. Someone in their infinite wisdom built it that way. And they weren't thinking speed, and they weren't thinking simplicity, they weren't thinking throughput. Maybe we can reevaluate.
Thank you.
Cool. Can you hear me? No. No? Okay. I'll put this down. But I want to thank Chris Bartosik for hosting this. Everybody stick around. I'm going to... That's okay. I think everybody can hear me. Chris has another event to get to, so we're going to let him beat the masses and get on the road. But thank you very much, Chris.
All right.
Appreciate it. Good job. And these guys, afterward, if you have time, come down and talk to them if you still have questions. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming again. These guys will be down here for a few minutes to answer questions. If you have them, come on down. Thank you very much for coming.